No, I think, what you're saying about iconography, sometimes it becomes, people use, like yesterday also we had a discussion about this imposition of certain kind of nationalistic, jingoistic respect for the state, if you like, that happens in every cinema hall where the national anthem is played before a film. And we talked about how at this recent film festival, Mami, where you're not supposed to do things like that. A film festival is at least is supposed to be exempt from, especially a film festival which has films that are also, including films that are critical of this very notion, or films like this. And it's so deeply ironic that and it doesn't take a movement for somebody to yell at somebody else who hasn't stood up, to question, to immediately brand them, to question, so there's this thing called love of your country or respect for the emblem. Somebody said, can you tell me why you are disrespecting the national emblem? And, does this guy even know what he's talking about? What is he doing in his everyday life to actually show that he cares about this country? I mean, does he care about the situation in Chattisgarh? Is he sort of conversant with what's happening in Odisha? Is he a violent man in his dealings with women? I mean, I don't know anything about him. I suspect that a guy who's going to get up like that and yell in a theater is probably ticking all the wrong boxes in answer to these three questions and many others. So, which is an overstatement, but it's like that. And anyway, this is going to become a rant, but I think that what ends up happening is that the illusion of the state and the state itself sort of withers away at some level, but these emblems remain, and then they control our lives in ways that we perhaps sometimes don't even realize. I had conversations with friends who say, so what's wrong with standing up? What's wrong with standing up? Surely it should be a matter of choice. And how does my not standing up, maybe my not standing up is actually an act of the kind of defiance or the questioning at least, which actually maybe implies more love for the country, whatever that may be, than the unquestioning standing up. So I don't know. So these questions also emanate, I think, for us from films like this. But recently, and a lot of films we've been seeing continue to have resonances. We saw Shashi Kumar's Kaya Taran yesterday, and it just happened to be on the 31st of October, and the film is about the Sikh killings, and he shot in Trilokpuri, and Trilokpuri is in the news again. So we talked about that yesterday. Now, Burma's in the news again for, the kind of censored or obfuscated news that Aarti is talking about, but it's sort of, the Rohingya Muslim killings and the involvement of these Buddhist monks. It's so electric when you see them start marching in this film. It is amazing. It is fantastic. It is these guys who've been in their sanctuaries coming out in support. It's fabulous. It's like the coal miners joining the gay march in this film called Pride that we saw in Mami. Several of us, I know, have seen it. We talked about it yesterday. But those same monks are implicated in the kind of thing that's happening. And the first sighting of Aung San Suu Kyi in this film, Burma VJ, is your hair stands on end. And I still have tremendous regard for her and all of that. But I do know that there's been a criticism of her for not condemning enough, strongly enough, or not condemning at all, or sort of whitewashing what's going on right now. So I don't know, do we want to, does it mean that the moment that this film documents has gone sour in some way? Or what does it mean? Just wondering.
I don't know if I understood this right, but I thought the presence of the state is very, very palpable in all the three films. In fact, it's the overwhelming presence of the state. Maybe virtual presence, but very overwhelmingly in your face kind of presence of the state. So I don't know whether you meant the absence of the state or the state not being. No, maybe I got it wrong. Secondly, I think it's. When we speak about the film on Burma, it is true that ethically it's a bit worrying, that film, because part of it is staged. For instance, this character is being shot by whom? Doing all that. But obviously it's being reconstructed to put it into context. Fine. I mean, one has those creative, liberties in filmmaking. Is there a virtual presence of an NGO in this whole thing? Is it NGOized beyond a point? These are worrying. But yet, I think the fact that this has been shot with a stealthy camera, and that footage is obviously very genuine, and it's very, very, I think, very arresting, very engaging footage. And I think you referred to the elision, the ellipsis, which is an aspect of all three films, that there is a sense of ellipsis. And I would think that something becomes even more powerful when you elide, what is missing is what allows for the metaphor, what allows for the imagination to take better hold. And on the last film, for instance, I thought it depends on your perspective. I wish he had cut his throat, So it depends from from where you look at it, So it is. I don't think it's a state. It is his conditioning because of centuries of culture, and his father tells him, "Don't soil your occupational, knife with blood," and so he doesn't. So whereas a rebellious act would have been to cut his throat.
Maybe if he'd had a gun, he would have shot him. That wouldn't have harmed.
Yeah. So it depends on from where one is looking at it. I mean, those who are suffering in these in Chattisgarh and others would have told, what an idiot, he had a chance to, at least cut one throat, and he didn't, I suppose. I don't know.
Yeah, but it's such a it's such a complex moment, and it is built up. All the close shots of the lovingly close shots of the stropping of the
done
razor,
very well.
All of that.
Ends very
so
well.
Also, if it had just fulfilled your expectations, it would have been a bit of an anticlimax too. But apart from that, apart from the fact that there is all this centuries of tradition and professional pride behind him, which is true, and that's what finally gives him a moment of dignity in the face of this haan saab, nahi saab thing that he has to do. It's also that, he might cut his throat, but there are going to be repercussions, and those repercussions won't be confined just to him. And perhaps he's aware of that, and the fact that the film is not, it's not giving us an internal monologue of his saying, मैं इसका गला काट दूंगा तो शायद ये साले military वाले आके मेरे पूरे गांव को जला देंगे. He's not saying that. He's not even necessarily thinking that, but we can think it.
That's a reading, or the reading is that centuries of culture is weighing down and will never liberate you.
So the last point, if you've read the original story, there's a lot of internal monologue, where he's actually assessing whether he should kill him or he shouldn't kill him, and stuff like that. I feel one also needs to make a distinction between kinds of violence. It's a state violence which is brazen, which is arrogant, and somehow there's the other violence which is also romantic. Revolutionary violence is also romantic in a sense. And the character feels that this is not right to kill him like this. I think it's not only, if you read Hernando, there's a feeling that he should not kill him like this when he's come for a shave. Killing him maybe in a battle would be okay, fine. So that aspect also needs to be weighed when you're talking about this movie.
Just a small point about something that I don't know when this inauguration took place, about a week back, but we are moving into a culture, of that kind of Ambani hospital where Modi apparently gave a speech for 20 minutes and so on. We're moving into a culture where no one is willing to tell the emperor that he doesn't have clothes on. All right? Because if you look at the audience that was there, celebrities, these were all celebrities. I mean, I saw Amir Khan there on television, etc., and Mukesh Ambani was smiling slavishly throughout the speech. Slavishly, because it's on YouTube, by the way, you can watch it. Slavishly. Except when he came to this, exactly when the 16th minute begins of Modi's inaugural speech, or whatever, the inauguration speech, the 16th minute begins on the YouTube video. That smile turns into a kind of expression of extreme pain on Mukesh Ambani's face, because the camera is on Mukesh Ambani for some reason at that stage. That's when Modi says that, in ancient India we had plastic surgery and you could put the head of an elephant.
You get Mukesh Ambani's reaction to that?
Yes, because the camera for some reason has panned onto him, and that smile becomes, sometimes a smile can look pained. It can look pained, and it did look pained. I mean, it was as if something had shattered for that brief moment. So, but essentially, I was wondering, one would have loved to be a fly on the wall for after when the film was, when the inauguration was over, to see what people were saying. And I'm sure no one was willing to talk about that big goof up or whatever that was. No one was willing. So we are moving into a culture where our sort of this conformism works in a very subtle way, that no one is willing to tell the emperor that the emperor doesn't have any clothes on. Okay. And, here we're talking about a vestigial media culture in India today. If the media is going to still remain at some level, despite corporate control and corporate ownership and corporate values, still going to be like maybe a backbone of a democratic system, a residual democracy in this country, then it has to be able to speak openly about these things, and not leave all of this to the so-called social media. There's a mainstream media in this country that has to be able to do this, retain some sense of a kind of critical outlook on the world. If someone says something outrageous, then say it. Say that this was outrageous, and make fun of it for a while.
This again reminds me of that moment in Safdar that we saw yesterday, where at the IFI, Shabana has asked this sort of innocuous question about, tell us about your experience with directors, and she says, actually, that can wait. We're distributing leaflets here, and this is right after Safdar Hashmi has been murdered, and I just want to read out, because some people might not have got the leaflets. Actually, obviously, she just wants to read that out there, and there's applause. And so it's taking a mainstream event and saying that, I don't want to be co-opted by this right now. At this moment, there's something I need to say. What you're talking about, the celebrity presence, Amir Khan, on that same day, I think, did that LGBT episode for Satyamev Jayate, and he has been very, very deeply, the problems of essentializing and so on, that's a different critique altogether, but the fact that he would be there also becomes, it is like, let's all at one level, let's in our own corners, let's be ourselves fully, but then let's also shake hands here and there, and let's not rock the boat too much. So I got reminded of this very thing when that moment happens, and you feel such a sense of, this doesn't happen anymore, or maybe it does, or it does rarely, but that's something that I think that's a kind of thing that is getting lost. That you go into a space like that and make your point in some fashion. But we're going to keep talking unless somebody wants to grab the mic and raise their hands. But anyway, there's like 2 minutes more.